Welcome everybody to Nightcap Season 2. I, of course, as always, am your host, Maria. Hello, hi, welcome. You may notice I'm here with two wonderful human beings. If you're not familiar with these faces, this is Nick, this is Dan. They are from a wonderful place on the internet. I mean, they're from a lot of places. But specifically, why I brought them here today is they both work with a beautiful group of people called Gehenna Gaming, a wonderful TTRPG conglomerate of individuals who are making spooky stuff great and making accessibility good and all of these things together. And it's just great. They're lovely people. I had the pleasure of being a part of Virtual HorrorCon this last summer, a couple weeks ago, I think it was, at the time of this recording. And it was super fun and it was super great. But enough about me just shouting your praises. Time to shout your own praises. So, Nick, Dan, hi, hello, welcome,
hello.
Officially, hello.
Hello.
Hello. That was, your voice is so wonderful. It's lovely. But, for the uninitiated, I said my stuff about Gehenna Gaming, but, what is Gehenna Gaming? What do y'all do? What do y'all focus on? Give me your spiel. Give the people a little taste of what y'all do. And what you two specifically do, like, in Gehenna Gaming as well.
Not much. That's what I'll tell you. should we give you like the like 2-second spiel, like reading from a card what Gehenna Gaming is, kind of?
No. If you want to know the 2-second spiel, you can go to their website. Nah, I want to hear what y'all have to say about the place that you hang out at.
All right. Well, I mean, Gehenna Gaming's a super fun horror-based TTRPG, kind of, like you said, conglomerate, but just like a really good group of friends, and it's a great community of individuals who are horror-centric when they like to put a little horror in their games. It doesn't mean that the game exactly has to be horror itself, but you can implement horror elements into your games. But we promote safety and inclusion in basically everything we do. It's one of our like head things. We try to make sure that all of our games are open and accessible to everybody who wants to play, as well as everybody who likes the genre. So yeah, that's basically my spiel of what Gehenna is.
Yeah, and I guess to add on to Dan, I mean, we're a group, we go to conventions, we run games for people, and we like to introduce people to a different side of the TTRPG. I mean, we run everything from like D&D to Alien to like, we ran the Good Society, which is like a Regency era, like Bridgerton type.
I need to find that. God, okay, oh my God.
I like to say we're like a buffet line of just like,
True,
try a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we do mainstream stuff, like you say, like Dungeons and Dragons. We do like Vampire the Masquerade and stuff like that. But we also do a lot of third-party stuff, taking like the smaller creators and stuff like that and running their games and seeing how they look, usually online mostly, but maybe even at a convention or something like that, we'll take somebody's third-party game and roll with it and run it live.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, awesome. So Gehenna Gaming, how did it come? Okay, I have I have so many questions, but the first one, the base one is, as much as y'all know, when did Gehenna Gaming first like come about? What was the like idea, the brainchild, or anything like that? As much as y'all can tell me or remember.
It's a little complicated, but yeah, go for it, Nick.
Okay, I'm gonna cite some deep lore here because this is before even I was around.
Yeah,
deep lore, let's go.
I believe it started in 2019. There were three members. That was Mark, Ian, and Rick. Mark and Rick are no longer with Gehenna Gaming. They're off doing their own stuff, and that's awesome for them. They're good people. But they all started like playing Vampire the Masquerade and being like, "Hey, we should run this for more people." And they turned into like a, running games for their kind of city and running multiple groups. And eventually they started going to the local conventions, and their big kind of like showing up was PAX 2019, where they ran their first game track at PAX U, and then later on in 2020 at PAX East. And then that was kind of the goal going forward, to run games at conventions. But of course, everyone knows 2020 March, things changed. And from there, the group was kind of forced to adapt. I had met them at PAX U, and I had been kind of talking to them and being a part of their community. So I was a community member first before I was even part of the team. And then that's when the idea that Ian had for, they wanted to do virtual horror con, and I kind of came on board for that. But honestly, it started up as a group of friends, and it's kind of evolved into this amazing collective of people, and just that are we're friends obviously, but we're also, I think we're all pretty skilled in our and versed in our departments that we do. So yeah,
Awesome.
we definitely have a great team of individuals who are very, I would say, very business oriented. We know what needs to be accomplished when it needs to be accomplished, and that's why you see a lot of stuff coming out of Gehenna Gaming. There's not like one or two actual plays like every few months and stuff like that. We try to jam pack a lot of stuff all at the same time. Ian is the lord of scheduling as well as Ellie, and they're like throwing stuff at us left and right. They're like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Let's do this. Let's do this. And it's wonderful. It's great because you get that sense of community, because we get all these games to start bringing people in and saying like, hey, let's do this thing. Let's play it out.
Yeah, if y'all watching or listening to this don't have the pleasure of being in their Discord, it is bumping. It's bump all the time. It's like it's wild. And like I also follow them on Twitch, by the way. That's where you see like 99% of their shows. But like it's constantly, there's something always going on, which I love. As a consumer, it's great to be able to like know that, if that's your genre of choice, if that's your game of choice that you like to watch, it's great to be able to know that like, oh, there's something that's going to be there pretty consistently. And as someone who streams pretty regularly, having consistency is key for streaming platforms. They really, really like that for some reason. I want to talk about specifically streaming games, because like you were saying, Nick, it doesn't sound like Gehenna started with the intention of doing like online focused things. It sounded like they were going to stick primarily like in person, which is great. But life finds a way to make that not a thing. But I want to talk specifically from your both of your viewpoints about the ins and outs of how you all go about producing your shows and making your games and content work on the online medium, because I've chatted to people about like, running games online is not the same as running them in person. It's very, there's a whole lot of different levels to it. But I want to know y'all's take on what specifically it takes for Gehenna Gaming to make games work online, and like the pros and cons that you found of making that and like implementing that. However much of that you want to dive into.
So it's a fun learning process, if you will. And the reason I say that is because there are some games that make it pretty easy to jump onto the online version of that game. And then there are some games that are not meant to be played online, but we try to make them accessible for other people where they can just, watch a show if they wanted to, versus like having to go find out what this game is all about, or, have to pick it up firsthand before even knowing what it's all about, kind of thing. So I think when producing a show, one of our major things we do as creators and producers is trying to see whether or not it would look good for an audience, seeing whether or not while we're playing that it looks entertaining, it feels entertaining, and trying to translate what is normally a in-person tabletop game into a media format that can be watched online. And I think that's a big obstacle that we run into a lot of times, because again, like I said, games not necessarily meant to be streamed.
Yeah, it's honestly, it feels like a constant tightrope walk. Like you're always having to adjust. There's always hurdles that you're gonna have to go through. No actual play is ever the same. And in terms of like production needs, I think the biggest thing that everything starts with, and shout out to Ian for always being the one that always is like putting it together. It's just organization. It's just knowing exactly what you need, what to accommodate it, because there have been some games where we've had to create like resources from scratch in order to facilitate play. I remember particularly we did 10 candles, and that was the biggest thing. It's like, like how do you bring like an atmospheric horror like that and you simulate that around a table. And we went through so many like ideas and how to do it. And I think the way that we ended up doing it with just like the animated candles and everything, I thought that went pretty well. But I mean, that's just one example of like, you have to be very versatile, I feel, to be in production.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
It's definitely different from like your average, like, you know, I want to play D&D online kind of thing. Because we're taking products that are not necessarily mainstream a lot of times, especially for a streaming community. And with Gehenna Gaming kind of forcing it to be like more of like a horror-based aspect, we try to also implement a lot of stuff that could also make the audience feel like they're watching a horror. So it's not just like, you know, listening to people talk. We'll try to implement things in the production that might be a little bit more spooky, like the atmosphere or the music or the, you know, maybe a scene transition or maybe something that makes it definitely more immersive, if you will, while you're watching it. And that's another obstacle that we have to tackle that doesn't necessarily always happen whenever you're playing like a happy-go-lucky game of D&D.
Yeah, and that's something that I appreciate, is that you all don't. This isn't to throw shade on any other actual plays, any other games, or anything like that. But a lot of the times, as someone who has produced and run and played in games, there's this element where you forget that there is in fact an audience who is watching. Like it is different than being around your home table. And so the fact that y'all are making that extra effort to ensure that, like, while yes, the players are playing a game and whoever's running it is running the game and they're having an engaging time and engaging with the audience, there's that extra element where the audience feels like they are also participating and not just viewing. And I think that that's really important and something that kind of makes it, that's what makes like places like Gehenna, and the first thing that came into my mind was like the extravagancy of Kolak and their production. They have a lot of different stuff, but the fact that that at least from the start, they were implementing ways to make the audience feel like they are also participating in whatever the event is. And I think that that's great. I think do that more if you can, friends. If you got the time and the ability,
the funds and the money,
if you can,
we got to talk about how expensive these things can get. Yeah.
Let's if that's something that you all want to talk about, because that's something that I think that is also not talked about very often. Is these things cost money to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I would love to hear your takes on
I mean,
that.
okay, so
budget breakdown over here.
Let's go.
Hold on, let me just pull up my spreadsheets here. No, you have to equate actual plays that aren't just friends who are getting together to show people their game. That's not what we do. We are trying to build a community, and we're trying to build an entertainment system, if you will, like an entertainment center. And to do so, you're talking about creating a production, a full-on production, just as if you're going to any other entertainment production, such as a movie or such as a theater, like to go watch a theater show or even a comedy show. There is production that goes into it prior to the talent showing up. And all of that costs money. If we're talking about doing an actual play where we all get together in person and we got to create a stage to do so. Even if we don't have to do so, this thing in front of me, that costs money. That costs money. We're talking about programs that we use, not necessarily OBS. OBS is one of the few open source and free systems that we use. But other than that, we're talking about stuff for producers, subscribing to different things to pick up our productions, like video production and stuff like that. If we want to make a trailer for something, or if we want to make an animation or something like that, we have to we're talking about paying for Adobe Suites, if you use Adobe Suites and stuff like that. There are costs that people don't see. And I think one of the newer costs that people are running into once they realize, oh, you know, I want to turn this more into like a show production versus just a bunch of friends getting together. You have to pay your people. You have to pay the cast. You have to pay the production. You have to pay whatever you get into. If you're not doing it yourself, you should be paying your people for their time and their efforts, especially if you're talking about professionals, people who do this for a living, even if it means that they're just freelancers. you should be paying your freelancers and for whatever purposes they put on into the project, that kind of stuff. So the numbers just keep going up and up and up, the more quality you want in your show. And of course, with a location like Gehenna Gaming and myself at Nat One Fun and stuff like that, production and production value is a very important part of the process. And I think that putting money towards it is very important because, again, when you take that time and that effort to put your to pay the people that are involved in the project, they're going to want to make it that much better.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like Dan just kind of nailed everything on the head. And I think it brings up a very important distinction when you go into making an actual play itself, is that you don't have players. Like they are players, but first and foremost, they're cast members. And your audience is what you're making the actual play for. Because if you're just sitting and you're like, you're making an actual play and you really don't care who watches, then at that point, you're doing beer and pretzels, and that's perfectly fine. And some of those games are awesome, and some of those games are really fun. I tune into, I feel, more beer and pretzel games every day than I do actually highly produced, because sometimes you need a break and sometimes you need something like fun and on the sillier side. But like things like Kolak, I love those guys. That team is amazing. They do great stuff. But that's a studio. That's a set. Those are costumes.
Oh yeah.
Which you can do, but and the truth of the matter is, actual plays don't make great money. It's a lot of investment, especially up front. So I think if you want to get into actual plays and you want to actually like start producing or make your own channel, just realize that you're going to be paying out of pocket for a bit, and that's fine. I mean, me and Dan, we have our specialties in education, and I don't know about Dan, but I'm still paying off student loans for it. But I'm putting it to use for passion stuff. Passion's it's got a price tag, but that's okay.
Yeah. Thank God for the military. that's who paid my bill right now. So, but I mean, I did pay the bill of having to serve for 10 years. So
yeah, let's say you put your time in.
There's a cost somewhere, right?
There's a cost somewhere.
But I want to talk about a couple of the things that the time and money and resources get put into Gehenna, the kind of stuff that you make. Specifically, the two things I want to talk about is Virtual HorrorCon, and also the thing that I forgot existed but is coming next year, Camp Gehenna. I know more about Virtual HorrorCon, but I've never done Camp Gehenna, and I don't know if it's because it hasn't ever happened or if it's because anything like that. So let's talk about Virtual HorrorCon first, because I participated in that this last summer, or like last week. But I want to know a little bit more about it, because I think virtual conventions are something that really didn't have not that it didn't have a need, but there wasn't a people didn't feel the need to make them, even though they're exceptionally good at being accessible for so many people who can't go to physical conventions, even outside of a giant world event. But like Virtual HorrorCon is one of the first online conventions that I actually knew about. So I'd love to hear how Virtual HorrorCon, like you briefly mentioned it in like the introduction of Gehenna Gaming, but I want to know a bit more about like the drive to make Virtual HorrorCon and what y'all strove to get, not get out of it, but like what kind of impact you wanted to make with it, in the online space and in the horror space and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Virtual HorrorCon, I think it was like, I always go back and try to find earlier conventions, but I think it was the first pandemic era virtual convention. Like because it was literally 2 weeks after most of the country shut down, because we did it in that March. And I remember when it was originally started, it was like, here was this idea that, that everyone was about to go in some really tough times, and we were all kind of separated from each other. And we wanted to throw an event that would not only like support the idea of like, okay, quarantine, stay inside, because even from the get-go we were facing pushback from that, but also being able to bring people together just even for those 3 nights and kind of realize that not all is shitty in the world still. And that's kind of the idea. In terms of like what we want to get out of it, I mean, the first one was just we did it on the backs of hard work. Like I remember we ran Virtual HorrorCon off of Ian's laptop and my computer, and Ian's laptop gave in 4 hours in, just blew the hell up.
Oh no.
I ran it the entire convention, I think, for like one of the things someone else stepped in for. But those mods, those players, those panels, everyone we had, they were all champions, and at the end it was really successful in terms of like community support. And then of course, like, we wanted to keep doing it and bringing it back, and because I think every time we do Virtual HorrorCon, we get a boatload of new people that like find out about our community. That's like one point of it, but we also, like any other convention, we get a lot of people that say, wow, like, I played my first tabletop game in Virtual HorrorCon. I came back from PAX East and someone said, yeah, that was one of my first games, or one of my first times playing the system, or first horror game. And just seeing all that unity together, like that's really what we get out of it. I mean, I'll tell you, for one thing, we don't really get money out of it.
It's not a money. I was gonna say, I don't know if we're gonna mention it, but it's not a money maker.
No.
Yeah. Well, even on top of that, like
we don't have major investors. So like, whenever you're talking about PAX U and you're talking about, like the bigger conventions that are physical and stuff like that, they have people coming to them being like, hey, we'll give you money so that we can run in your show, that kind of thing. Gehenna Gaming, we get the version of that is like, we'll allow you to run our games, that kind of stuff.
We do get like paid sponsors, like we did at Alchemy, Onyx Path, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to a lot of other big conventions.
It is also to, again, pay for the things that you're supposed to pay for, like the production and the the players, the websites, and all the things that you have to put money into to then to even break even, and then whatever you make on top of that. So
well, and on top of that, at least for this year, y'all also were doing you were benefiting a charity on top of not making money. Pretty much, you were also supporting charity Don't Be a Monster, which is a bullying prevention charity. Is that something that was always like in the back or forefront of like wanting to be able to support charities alongside of the convention, or is that something that started this year, or where did that kind of fit in there?
So we've done this is the third Virtual HorrorCon we've done, and we've always supported a charity. Year one was, I believe, it was the World Health Organization. Year two was Black Girls Code, and then this year was Don't Be a Monster. And the charity aspect, it's like I said, it's all that feel good stuff. It's
right.
If people are going to come together for anything, they're going to come together for charity, and I think that's beautiful.
Success for Virtual HorrorCon comes in a different definition for a lot of people, and for us, for the team of Gehenna Gaming, success for us means that we brought together a lot of people who are like-minded, helped make a community, or build a community aspect around that center, introducing new people to new games and everything, and helping out those in need and charities and stuff like that. So literally, like, success when we get through with the con, we have a nice cool down, like, hey, what do you think how do you think the con went? There is very much a who were we able to touch out in the world with this convention? Who did we make? What did we bring to the world? How did we make the thing better, kind of thing? That's success to us, versus how much money did we bring in, or how did we even break even, that kind of stuff. That's not necessarily what we would consider success.
Excuse me. And I think that because it's more than just, you had more than just games on the convention. It was like a true kind of convention. There were panels, there were vendor shops, there was merch, like all everything that you could find at a convention you could find, and you can do it at your home computer, or even on your phone or anything like that. Again,
I think major aspect of Gehenna is accessibility, right? And if you can literally just sit down on your couch with your laptop or even your phone and do all the things you can do normally at a convention, that just builds the accessibility even more.
For sure. So my a follow-up question to Virtual HorrorCon, is there perhaps potentially thoughts of making your own physical HorrorCon sometime in the, the out there sphere?
That is probably not something we can answer straight up. Would it be cool as Dan Munoz would say? Yeah, sure, hell yeah, that'd be cool as hell. Yeah. But right now in the books, probably not. But I don't know. I can't speak for the head of Gehenna, so
yeah.
I feel like we would lose a little bit of the shine if Virtual HorrorCon was all of a sudden like, we call it what, physical HorrorCon, in-person HorrorCon?
Because I'm pretty sure there's already a HorrorCon,
yeah.
So we definitely have to rebrand, and that's a whole nother beast.
Anyone listening to this, get us the rights, and then we can talk.
we'll just call it physical virtual HorrorCon.
The other thing though that y'all are at least ramping up to do is Camp Gehenna, which you can find all this stuff on, they have a big old link tree that has a bunch of different links to all sorts of different things. But Camp Gehenna, I would love to know more about this. Very strange and cool, and it looks creepy, but I know it's gonna be creepy because y'all are creepy. But from what I'm gathering, reading verbatim from your website, it's a 3-day, 3-night summer camp style retreat, which all I can think about is Friday the 13th and all that sort of stuff in the mountains just north of Atlanta, Georgia. Which is it seems like it's a 3-day TTRPG getaway summer camp convention thing. Is that what it tell me more, please, as one who wants to go and also as one who wants to know more. Please tell me everything.
So it's great for people who are outdoorsy, right? First and foremost, it is a camp. It is physical, you go to it location, and it's going to be a great little experience. But just I don't know if you've heard, but D&D in a castle, or the D3 at sea, the one where you go on a cruise and you play Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. Gehenna Gaming is attempting to try to do something similar for horror-based TTRPGs and stuff, where I assumedly, because we haven't really, I haven't at least talked to Ian enough to, and Nick, you could probably pick this up, but I believe it's we're gonna get people to sign up as game masters and whatever to run games for people, and then while we're there, doing camping stuff, going hiking, playing, whatever, and going fishing, whatever it may be, we're gonna be playing TCRPGs all through it and having a good time just hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that I'm allowed to tell, it's it's gonna be workshops. It's gonna have stuff like I said, to be a better GM, to be a better player, to be a better storyteller. And I mean, I think if you've ever wanted to run horror or just be a GM in general, I think it's a great experience. Is there other stuff I can't say? Yes, a lot of costs. Who knows what happens when you get everyone in a camp and run all this awesome stuff. Anything could happen, but so it's gonna be safe though.
You gotta take from the first line it shows on the web page and everything like that. It says sitting by the lake and cooking s'mores and telling horror stories around the campfire, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the feel that we're going for. You know what I mean? That whole being able to sit around and chill and play a TTRPG together, in a location that could be considered spooky. So
yeah, there's nothing in the woods.
For sure. That's so. I'm a big fan of atmosphere to the nth degree. So I love nature. I love being outside. I'm a big fan of shows like podcasts like the like Old Gods of Appalachia, which is
Mm.
very, very like atmospheric in its storytelling and everything like that. So to be able to play something like, I don't know, Monster of the Week, but like amped up to like super horror in the middle of a spooky forest somewhere, and you're like all camp counselors, and like, you know, it's like getting in, it's like it's almost LARP but not quite, and that's, you know, maybe there, I'm not saying confirm or deny, but maybe there's gonna be some LARP elements to that. I don't know. This is just speculation, but who knows?
Neither confirm nor deny.
No one knows. No one. Shush. But that's coming next year, which is great. Is that something else that was also you wanted it to be sooner and it had to be pushed back because of the world and
isn't that everything like in TTRPGs? I feel like we always have these great grandiose ideas, and then we look at our schedules and we're like, shit, we can't play that till next year.
Can't do that. We're booked.
It's partway logistics, partway the idea of that, like, you know, it's we just are hearing about new variants. We want to make sure everyone's
safety
safe.
protocols.
Yeah.
Safety protocols are going to be the biggest you know, hurdle we need to make work.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is great, that is something that y'all are so focused on, specifically with like your in-person stuff, because like, you know, the future is uncertain, so we will cross our fingers and cross our toes that next year things will be a different kind of way, but like safety is still super, super important, you know, so
and what's
nice, everything.
What's nice is that it's all, you know, mostly at least, hopefully it's going to be, you know, outside activities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it will be a lot safer than, like, let's say, for instance, indoors on a boat, you know, where you can't escape it, that kind of stuff.
You're on a boat.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to take us now into kind of like a more y'all personal stuff and less like big Gehenna stuff, because
Big Gehenna, I love that.
Big, you know, big G. Because at the end of the day, we are all wonderful geeks and gamers and nerds of various varieties. And we all enjoy the things.
Copyright.
We all enjoy TTRPGs. I mean, like, y'all are working with a group of people who's making it big on the internet screen. But we're all in our own ways storytellers and creators and all that sort of stuff. So I would love to pick y'all's brain specifically about TTRPGs, because I'm asking everybody this season, what are some of your favorite TTRPGs? If you run games or if you play them, because you can run games and like running them but not playing in them, very vice versa. But what are some of your, you can pick a top 1, 3, probably not more than 3 because there's a lot of them out there. But what are some of the games that y'all like to play and or run for people, horror or otherwise?
Dan, I'll let you go first. And
Okay. So I was raised on Dungeons and Dragons. I got my start when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old when I started playing. And back in the day, I didn't even know I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I had a friend invite me over, say, hey, you want to play a game? I'm like, yeah, okay, create a character. I was like, cool. Like, I didn't know what it was. So kind of growing up and playing stuff like Dungeon World and things like that. I think Dungeons and Dragons made a really big impact in my life. And then I started playing like Dungeons and Dragons 5e, like right around the time that Critical Role, well, I was like playing maybe a year or two before Critical Role started. Then Critical Role hit and like it started to like snowball and people started like really getting into the hobby. And so I would think Dungeons and Dragons is probably my favorite to run, just because I know it so well, that it's almost like just running a game in real life. You know what I mean? About real life. I mean, because I can easily improvise something that either is canon or can be easily considered canon because I just know the world that well. But to play in, oh my goodness, I could, I love Dungeons and Dragons. Don't get me wrong, but I love running it more than anything. I'd say to play in, there are just so many. I was in Morkborg, and Morkborg is just the most ridiculous and fun game that I've ever been a part of, being that, you know, your character can die like 3 times in a single episode.
Oh my God.
You know, stuff like that. Cyberpunk, I've been really getting into Cyberpunk recently. If you were at Gen Con in the future, but also in the past, considering when this comes out, if you were at Gen Con, I run games specifically for Artalsaurian Games. Cyberpunk is one of my favorite genres in terms of, I just love the cyberpunk genre in general. And then so playing the TTRPG was also super duper fun. So I'd say probably those are like my top 3: Cyberpunk, Morkborg, and D&D.
Nice.
It's a good spread.
That's a good spread. Those are some tasty games.
So my number 1 would have to be, I was instantly thinking about this, was Alien RPG. It's the game that's I've just been playing ever since it came out, like constantly on repeat. I love Alien. It's my favorite movie of all time. I love the lore. I love the universe going in. I think it's like the best space sci-fi horror system out there, and there are a lot of great space sci-fi horror systems like Mothership, etc. out there as well, but Alien's always taken the cake. My favorite game to play and like run in for people, like I love running Alien. I think playing it, I love playing in Cult. Another horror game. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. You get to tell some really creepy stuff in there, and some of my best games have been in Cult. And then a little bit of a swerve. It's gonna sound I really enjoy. I have a special spot.
It's My Little Pony, isn't it?
Hell yeah, let's go.
No, it's even more ridiculous. I have a special spot in my heart for Gumshoe, but not particularly just any Gumshoe. But
is it Bubblegum Shoe?
It's Bubblegum Shoe.
Yes.
I love Bubblegum Shoe so much. I picked that book up and I was like, I remember running it the first time and just, you know, there's like, oh no, there's no monsters. It's just, we're just running Nancy Drew style adventures. It's just, let's have fun.
That's an Evil Hat, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Gumshoe is so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Bubblegum Shoe, it's kind of like the Kids on Bikes equivalent to like, I don't know, like Spies or like Mystery Solvers or what have you, where like in Kids on Bikes, the kids can't die. So it's like that. It's like you take kids and you put them in like you said, Nancy Drew, where like Nancy will be in peril, but doesn't die, you know?
It's Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
It's Scooby-Doo.
Like Nancy doesn't have to worry about dying. She just gets to worry about getting like thrown off the property or something like that. Or her parents finding out.
Yeah, somebody yelling at you a little too harshly. I was trying to think of like specifically horror games that I've played recently. Delta Green is one, so like that, I think it's Pulp Cthulhu, I think is what it's based off of, but Delta Green is super great. I've done a couple scenarios with that. The one that I was just thinking about that isn't a horror game, but it's ridiculous, is Paranoia. Because you mentioned Morkborg, where you could die like 3 times in an episode, and like Paranoia, you could die up to 7 times in an episode, you know? But it's so silly and so wonderful and so goofy, and it has a potential that you can make it like dystopian horror as well. But we did not. It was so very silly. It was so very goofy.
Some honorable mentions I'd like to throw out there is Something Is Wrong Here and Alice is Missing.
Oh my God, Alice is Missing. I could scream about Alice is Missing.
Those 2 games are okay. So I consider TTRPGs a singular experience. Like, this is what a TTRPG makes you feel like afterwards. After playing Something Is Missing, or I'm sorry, Alice is Missing and Something Is Wrong Here, those 2 games make you feel completely different after you have completed the game. After playing Alice is Missing, my heart rate was like at 130. And for those that don't know, Alice is Missing is a completely silent TTRPG. You don't talk. It is all based on text messaging. And I have never felt more anxious. I have never felt like more like, oh shit. Like during during an actual game. Like, of course, you know, I like to dive into the game while I play it, but still, it has that effect on you. Like, the game is over and my heart is still like pumping. That is Alice is Missing. Something Is Wrong Here is just a real deep dive into you as an emotional being. The more emotional you are, like as a person, the more impact that game has on you. And I think that game can lead to a lot of bleed, and you need to be careful about what that means for you as a person, because there's a lot of real life in real life topics that can be talked about in that game, that definitely before you play that game, you need to take into account a lot of safety measures to make sure that you and your players are all good to go.
Safety tools.
Yeah, we can talk about safety tools in a second if you want, but that's one of the main things about those two games is they make you feel completely different after playing them. And I was like, oh, so TTRPGs aren't just this like this one feeling after you get done. It's like, yeah, we played the TTRPG. After those games, I'm like, what is life?
Yes, that's the most fantastic thing, and like I've talked to Spencer about it, and I'm really excited to check out this other game that you mentioned too. Something is wrong here. Is that it opens a new door and a new channel about what actual play and what TTRPGs can be, the potential that they can be. And I think, like we mentioned earlier, I think like the crew over in Kolok land is also, you know, I've heard Hyper RPG and all of them, they're also tapping into that aspect of like, well, what kind of boundaries can we push as far as like what is a TTRPG? What is actual play TTRPGs? And like what kind of things can we do to expand that definition and expand that horizon past like, you know, grabbing dice and slinging them around and, you know, being sword wielding, you know, elf, wizard, dwarf, etc., etc., etc.
I think you nailed it on. I was going to say, I think you nailed it on the head when it comes to TTRPGs are now going from like that board game aspect, rolling dice and stuff like that, to being transformative and being a form of entertainment that, you know, you go to experience something versus, you know, play a game.
And I think there is definitely a time and place, 100%. And that's not to knock the, like, you want to sit down and play, like, just gritty D&D, like, rules as written, you know, I just want to, you know, you want to play, you know, gritty Pathfinder, you want to play, you know, anything like that, that is very heavily, you know, mechanics heavy and, like, all of this stuff, rolling dice and doing the things and all of that.
Yeah, power fantasies have their place, and you know it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've played so many games that like I guess you would consider like silly. Yeah, I love Pathfinder. Like I was just playing like Monster Hearts with my friends, and it was just us shit talking each other for 3 hours, and it was like a respectable, fun way, and we had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's so I think this era, like 2019 and onward, is truly. It feels like a renaissance of TTRPGs.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it's an up and coming.
Yeah, and it's hard to see it. It was hard to see it when it was happening, but it's also hard to explain it to people who are just not in the space. Like, I love my parents to death. They don't quite understand why I'm so excited about all of these things. But like they know I'm excited and that makes them excited. But like to explain to people like, no, you like seeing where D&D specifically came from, where it wasn't the only TTRPG to exist at its time, but it's the one that people know. It's the one that was very vilified. It was made into a villain back in the, you know, the 80s and then has turned, you know, 20, 25, 30 years later into a worldwide phenomenon. And it's like just recently there was it Paramount's making a movie about literally D&D, and I watched it and I'm like I hope that it's at least 90% decent. Doesn't have to be a perfect movie. I don't even care.
Hey,
like,
look,
I want it to be a shit show like my D&D game. Like that's what I want it to be.
if we're comparing it to what we've gotten in terms of like big media taking over any kind of D&D thing, I think we'll be fine. It looks great in the it looks great in the trailer. From the trailer's point of view, and honestly, they can't do much worse than what we've gotten already.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
There's like this weird disconnect that I always see whenever I like look back on the past and then the current state of D&D. Because I don't know about you, but like in high school when I first started playing D&D, like it was something like you really couldn't talk about in front of people because they just didn't get it. Like I remember telling my friends that anytime anyone would ask us what we were doing, we're like, oh, we're having like a poker night. And like that was our code. It's like
we're just having game night.
Yeah, you want to come over and we'll play poker. And then of course a few people are like, well, I'll play poker. And I'm just like, no, not this type of poker. And you had to make up it was so wild to me that it's so acceptable now, and then like everything, and I love it. It's amazing. I wish that's the environment I grew up in.
Yeah, it's wild being able to, like, my daughter, she's 14 years old, and I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with her, and I'm thinking back to me when I was 14 years old and thinking like, my God, my parents would have like taken me to church or something like that if I told them I was going, and playing Dungeons and Dragons during school hours or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's wild to think about like the different things that have come about from it as well. Specifically, I'm thinking about like the online spaces and how they've affected how TTRPGs are being made and presented and everything like that. Because to kind of wrap back around to it, safety tools were not a thing that I had heard of, period, in any kind of capacity until really like the late 2019 into 2020, when I started seeing it online, playing games where they were like, hey, these are the things we're going to implement, and I'm like, what is that? Because in my head I always try to I'm a very empathic person, so I can kind of pick up when something's bothering someone, but I never want to take that for granted. I never want to like miss something or misinterpret something or anything like that. So the implementation of safety tools in TTRPGs, specifically in like virtual spaces, but also you can have them in real world games too, friends. It's really easy to do. But I would love to talk to y'all about safety tools, because it's something that y'all at Gehenna Gaming specifically, and by proxy, I assume that you all as well, enjoy focusing on and making sure that it implements in things. So I would like to know, like, talk to me about safety tools. Talk to me about stuff that you like to see as far as safety tools go, and like that sort of stuff that maybe some people don't know about.
So I'll let Nick take it away at first, but because this is like one of my favorite subjects to talk about in terms of gaming nowadays, especially from the horror gaming aspect, but like in general. But Nick, go for it, and then I'll pick up.
Yeah, I want to start with like the point I always start with whenever I've been on panels talking about safety tools, that I think that the name safety tools gives it the idea that like you're holding the game back, and that's the kind of notion that they think about. And I think that's totally wrong, because I honestly think that with safety tools you can go even harder, you can go more hard, you can go more hard in the paint, knowing that everyone's comfortable and everyone's on board in it. And I always tell people when, because I will go those credits and say, well, why do you use safety tools? Why do we need safety tools? And I go, I can guarantee that I've run scarier, more intense games than you using safety tools than not. And to me, it's just like I love the, so like, we know about the X card, we know about lines and veils, but there are so many things out there that you might not even consider a safety tool, but it is like checking with your players, getting their opinions on how the session went, seeing how they feel, if their character feels like they've gotten enough focus or spotlight, or maybe they're not having fun. Like that in itself is a safety tool. Something that I do in a horror is that like at the end of every session, I always have everyone take a deep breath together, and that's kind of how we exit the game. That's that somatic component that I like to just like bookend with every time that I play horror. And to me, just the horror has a lot of notions to it, has a lot of preconceived notions going into it. A lot of people have issues with horror because of these preconceived notions, and using safety tools just kind of alleviates that and makes everyone feel like they can have the most fun at the table. And if I can play with Dan, and I can play with you, and we could sit here and I know what I'm about to say isn't going to piss you off or make you upset or make you feel comfortable or make you feel uncomfortable, then I know that I can lean into it more, and I'm going to have a lot more fun in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to think about it. Like back in the day, like you were saying, it wasn't really a mainstream thing. In fact, I didn't see it anywhere. And the thing is back in the day, it was a guessing game. You would go into every single game and just hope that what you said wouldn't be too far. And a lot of times that meant for people who actually cared about other people would then really kind of have to hold back and just make sure that whatever they say is as PC as possible, and or not necessarily dive into things that might be a little maybe a little racy, kind of like I don't know kind of thing. Or horror aspects where it's like I'm just not going to talk about like these things because they're generally considered kind of bad, or it could scare somebody. Gaming nowadays, I think, is making the turn, especially horror based, but in anything, is making the turn towards making it like a staple in before running a horror game. And I love that, because exactly what Nick said, going into a game with a consent sheet of saying like, here are the things that I don't want to talk about, and here are the things that I want you to hurt me with. Because like there are times where it's like I have a consent checklist where it's like, here we go, I don't like something that a lot of people check off like 90% of the time is like sexual situations, or sexual assault or sexual harassment, something like that, right? Obviously it could be for a lot of people a huge deal, but for like other things such as spiders and stuff like that, those can be on that checklist. But just like Nick said, that means if spiders aren't on the checklist, that means I can go hard as I want with
spiders everywhere.
Spiders everywhere, or something like that. So content warning, spiders, right? And so that we also need to take into your account, your audience listening.
Yeah.
So honestly, the whole aspect of making sure that you can hone in your target as a GM and be like, okay, so this just went from a body horror type campaign where it's like all gross stuff and like missing limbs or whatever, to a psychological horror. And now I'm going to mess with my players' heads. Like I'm going to really dive in. I'm going to mess with their heads, or opposite, right? Heads, no, can't do that. Don't want to mess with their heads. That's fine. I'm going to jack up their bodies. I'm going to jack up what they see. I'm going to describe something. It's so gross that it makes them go like this. Like that is the kind of stuff you can dive into.
That's the thing. Like I've been fortunate to play in so many games with so many GMs and so many different ways of like checklists and safety tools and all that sort of stuff. Most notably, I yesterday, in fact, at the time of this recording, I have a weekly Vampire the Masquerade game that I play offline. And before we even started, like we all talked about like, hey, this is how hard we want to hit each other, and like what we don't want to have on the table. And like I brought up the idea that like, hey, we're playing in like late 1800s London, England for Vampire the Masquerade, and I was like, hey, I'm playing a male person who is gay, and like in the late 1800s in London, that was not okay, you know. And so we had a lot of deep discussions about like, well, in vampire world, that doesn't matter. Like that, not in a bad way, but like in a everything is a lot more acceptable in specifically the vampire culture. So like it was a lot of discussions about that, but then also like the things about like content warning for character death, things about like dealing with our characters kind of dying, and like the terrible situations we find our bodies in, and like things of that nature, or dealing with people we care about passing away and then not passing away. I had to deal with this last session, and we had safety tools in place so that I as a player knew that like the person running my game, yes, they made me so sad. I cried real American tears yesterday because he took away the physical manifestation of the person that my character loved, but then also now he's a ghost and he gets to follow me around for the rest of my life, which is terrible and heartbreaking, but also is something that I consented to way back at the beginning. We all knew that like, hey, these are potentials. Are you okay with this? And we're like, yes, please. Here's a list. Here's a drawer of knives. Please use them for my character, you know?
So one of the topics I like to jump in and also have people consider is that you can start a campaign, or you can start a one shot, or whatever you might do with a consent sheet and be like, here you go, this is my lines and veils and everything like that. And during that same game or during that same campaign, they can change. So you as a GM have two opportunities to really, and with what Nick was saying, you can check in mid-game, during the game, whatever, as a GM and be like, hey, is everybody still cool? And this is kind of like, this seems like a harsh topic kind of thing. We all still cool? You can stop game and just kind of briefly say that and then continue on while everybody's good to go. But as a player, you should feel comfortable in your games, whatever game you're playing and whoever you're playing with. You should feel comfortable enough to literally be like, hey, by the way, this sucks. I don't like this. Can we like change it up? You should be able to feel comfortable enough to do that, even if your consent spreadsheet did not mark that as like a line or a veil. You should feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, by the way, I didn't think about that, like the way this is going down. I'm going to go ahead and add that as a veil or a line or something like that. Can we change it up kind of thing? So they're constantly changing.
Yeah. One of the things that I like that we started using, I started using it when I was with a TTRPG group that no longer is around, but that I still use right now on my Pathfinder games on Waffles Maple Syrup, is we made cards because we stream it online. And that's one of the things, and you can use these at your table too if you find out a way to do that. You can make little cards or have colored cards with like symbols and stuff you can put on them that without even having to say anything verbally, you know, you can like check in with people, be like, hey, is everything okay? Especially if like you're in, you know, I was in a scene where I was arguing in character with another character. And in those moments, you as a performer with like actual plays, you don't want to like get out of this moment that you're in. However, as a player and as a physical human being, you want to make sure that your scene partner, whoever you're with, and the people who are watching and the people who are in the call with you, you know, are okay. So I might see somebody flash up like, hey, is everything good? And then anybody can respond in however way they want. So like, even if me as a performer is like, hell yeah, I'm great, and the person I'm with is like, hell yeah, I'm great, if one person in the call is like, or like if one person is like, stop, then you stop, you know, or you bring it back or like anything like that. And it's so easy because you don't have to go into detail unless it's like, we gotta stop right now. You don't have to go into details about whys, wheres, anything like that, because it's just as easy as this is great for me, or like this is not quite there, or we gotta stop like right now. We gotta stop right now and take a breather.
Do you want to see something funny here? You don't even need to make cards. I just found these around the house and I was like, hey, these are the right colors. Yeah. And so I have a pair of pliers, some scissors, and a marker that I just have on my desk at all times now because it's funny and it's a staple now of me whenever I have my safety tools. And I'm like, look, you don't even have to like be creative and be like, okay, I'm gonna print out X cards, or I just look around. I'm like, yeah, that's red. That's green.
Yeah, and if for some reason, like if you're with a group that has challenges differentiating, you know, specifically like reds and greens and things like that, talk as a group, figure out colors, figure out symbols, figure out things that work for you. And again, it all comes down to like, at the end of the day, we all want to tell games. We all want to tell games that are fun and that are impactful in whatever kind of way, whether they're silly or like emotional or anything like that. Anybody who participates in TTRPGs wants to tell stories. And the best way to tell stories, like you both beautifully had said, is telling them in a way where you don't feel like you have to hold back. And the best way to do that is to know where your barriers are. You know, you don't want to cross. It's like building a beautiful picket fence around you as storytellers and as players. And it's not to say that there isn't stuff on the other side of that fence, but the stuff on the other side of that fence is something that this person doesn't want to deal with. So we're not going to go on the other side of that fence. You know, there's plenty of space here. There's so much space here to walk around and to do stuff in. You don't have to go on the other side of that fence. It's just not for you right now.
I like to always say that like creativity is inhibited more by boundaries. Like everything, like if you look back to any film, any video game, any, you know, project it is, when people figure out what the boundaries are and then getting to play with those boundaries and play within the lines, that's when you get some truly magical stuff. And then those projects that don't have boundaries, that don't have scope or don't have any like sort of scope, they tend not to work well because they tend to forget themselves halfway through, or or just how they're even put together and organized. And I think, like, even going back to safety tools are everywhere. They're not even just in tabletop. Your ESRB rating on a video game is a safety tool. The ratings at a movie is a safety tool. Watching wrestling and watching the ref do this in the middle of it to signify that that we have gone too far and we need to pull back, that's a safety tool.
People,
it's everywhere.
That's one of the things that gets me. It's so funny. The same people who watch a movie and don't blink when it says rated R, or when it says G, or whatever the movie might say, they don't blink when it does that. But when it's in their game that they're playing, just to say like, hey, we're gonna go for like this kind of vibe, then they're like, ah.
That is not how Gary Gygax intended my game.
I wasn't raised like this. This is weird.
And I think that's something that I cross my fingers and hope that it's just okay. Well, in the year of the Void 2022, there's not too much of an excuse for it to be naivete, because at least in the TTRPG community, but like part of me wishes and hopes that it's simply because they are uninformed as to like the reality of safety tools, which is why things like this exist, so that we can let y'all know what they are and the realities of them and why they're good and helpful and everything like that. But they're really I feel like I've said it a couple times already on this season alone. There's really no excuse to not have it in your games, whether it is in person or
and it doesn't matter
online.
Doesn't matter what game we're talking about. Doesn't matter if we're playing like the most horror-based game, or we're playing
Root. You can play the Root TTRPG, which is
My Little Pony. Or your
Bubblegum
Nancy Drew
Shoe.
game, Bubblegum Shoe.
Yeah,
right?
Bubblegum Shoe goes hard.
But you know what I'm saying? Because like in terms of like your games, you can put horror aspects into anything. When I play Dungeons and Dragons, it doesn't matter if I'm playing Rime of the Frost Maiden. It doesn't matter if I'm playing, Tales from the Abyss, or whatever it might be. I like to implement some bits of horror throughout my game and stuff like that. So I always try to make sure that no matter what, before I even plan on implementing them, that my players know that there is a possibility of certain things. So I make sure that there is a consent spreadsheet, as well as me going to them and being like, hey, these are the things that might pop up. Do any of those make you feel uncomfortable? That kind of thing. And that's when we communicate back and forth with each other to make the perfect game. And I just want to throw this out here too. Everything that we're saying sounds super convoluted because it's like a lot, right? Because we're saying a lot about it. But here's the deal. It's a simple spreadsheet where you literally can just click and click and click, and then boom, you're done. It takes all of maybe a bathroom break to go over it and look over these things. That's it. And then you're done. And then you can create a safe and amazing and like really go hard in the paint, like we talked about it, horror game for your players. And if you don't mind me plugging it, Gehenna Gaming has a wonderful sheet that you can use. I was
literally about to like try to be like, I'm pretty sure that you had one.
GehennaGaming.com/resources will lead you to a spreadsheet that you can download for free that goes over a ton of different things that you can use in your games. And like I said, takes all of maybe 5 minutes.
And here's the thing too, the consent sheet and safety tools don't just protect the players, they protect the GM as well.
Sure.
Yes.
Sometimes the GMs, like I know being a GM myself, there are certain things that I don't like to see. I don't want to see it. There's certain things that's not necessarily even a trigger for me, but it makes me not enjoy the game. And so I think that warrants being on that sheet.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I've had to constantly remind myself is that whoever's running the games, GMs, DMs, storytellers, keepers, whoever it is, they deserve to be checked in on as well, right? They may be the one who is scheduling things. They may be the one who is like giving you the narrative tracks or whatever it is, but like us as players, it is also on us to check in with each other, but also to check in on your GMs, y'all. They are also here experiencing and telling stories and everything alongside you. So make sure you check on make sure your GM is watered. Water your GMs, everyone. But yeah, like their players there just alongside. And if you're doing online shows, your producers, anybody who is in the call with you at any time, specifically in an online setting, check in with everyone. Not just the like, you know, person you're talking to in the scene, not just, you know, everyone. You know?
That's one thing. Yeah, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I recently had someone give me a consent sheet as a producer, and I was like, wow, I've never even considered that. That is amazing. I'm gonna do that from now on.
Yep. Yeah, literally. That same exact story. Like, not even like a month ago was the first time that as a producer, I was like, oh yeah, we're there too.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that? Like, so yeah, absolutely. If you have somebody in the call that's just watching or, you know, producing the show for you, or what could be doing audio slicing, I don't know, you just make sure that everybody's comfortable with what is going on.
I'm excited for the day where like I know that like there's a certain amount that we as producers and performers and everything can kind of try to give content warnings and things like that for audience members, and I'm excited for the day that we can be like, hey audience, this is exactly what you could be getting into. And I think a lot of places are pretty doing pretty well at trying to make sure that people are understanding of the kind of content that they are going to be introduced to. Like the one that comes to mind is Huntsman's Hydra. They're running a Blades in the Dark campaign right now, and on their screen in their chat they have like content warnings, like the major content warnings of like, these are things that could potentially be in this game. And I think that sort of stuff, even if it's just like a prompt that comes up in the chat or like in the video descriptions, if you do recorded stuff or anything like that, where you have at least a general idea of like, these are major triggers that could be an issue, so that people know what they're getting into. You know, it's just like the ratings of a movie. They have like the rating, and they have like these are general things like violence and blah 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 blah. It's the same general idea. You know, add more of that sort of stuff into your games, and people will know what they're getting into as much as you can. You know, as much as you can predict an impromptu based storytelling game. Yeah, you know.
Just throwing out content, like I'm sure, I know Dan does that as well. We just throw out content warnings, be like, hey, this is the type of stuff that's going to be in this game. If it's your thing, that's cool. If it's not, you know, we have plenty of other. I always say this: we have plenty of other content on our channel. Yeah, this one just might not be for you. Yeah, and you know, shout out to Brandon and Huntsman Hydra. They're awesome people.
I'm so excited to see where Gehenna Gaming goes in the future. I'm so excited to see what y'all are doing, you specifically, and then you as a giant, you know, big Papa G, Gehenna Gaming, or whoever.
Big Papa G, I love
it. But like, it's so exciting to see people who care about not only TTRPGs, but how to make it so cool for the people involved, and also safe, and also accessible, and all of these like inclusive, and it's it's so good, and I'm so excited to see what y'all are up to. But I'm also excited because I'm crossing my fingers that I'll also, well, I'm going to PAX U, but I'm crossing my fingers that I'll also be running something with Gehenna Games at PAX U. We'll see. I have to figure out what I'm doing, but
that's always the struggle.
Yeah, I have ideas. I just need to pitch it to people who make those decisions. But anyway, all of that to say, y'all, thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting with me for all of this time. This was delightful. For anybody who is watching this is the first time I've met these two lovely people that I can remember. And they're lovely. They're wonderful. They're delightful. But also make sure that you check them out at all of the conventions that are coming up. But before we send ourselves away to the great unknown, Dan, Nick, where can people find you and Gehenna and all the things that y'all are doing these days?
Dan?
So I got probably a little bit of a list here. So
let's go.
First and foremost, I'm Dan under Nat One Fun, pretty much everywhere. I do run my own production company outside of Gehenna Gaming, so you'll find Nat One Fun Productions at a lot of places. But You just at Nat1Fun or /Nat1Fun at any website that you're at, you'll probably find us and our community. The Nat1Fun community is a great and a lovely place of individuals who are, just fans of gaming in general, in TTRPGs, and mostly the streamed aspect of it. But you can find me on, every other Wednesdays on a Nat1Fun channel, doing on Twitch, doing stuff called the Running Feywild. So Running Feywild is a cool isekai like game where our players got thrown into the Feywild, and they are from their own D&D game that they were playing inside of the game. It's a bit of a mind twister, but check it out. That's a Dungeons and Dragons game. And then on Fridays, I do production for a show called Radiant Stories, which is on the Be Never Ending channel, which is a really cool show with really great players. But it implements the writers of the Radiant Citadel. The people who actually wrote the book Radiant Citadel are in there as players. So some really cool stuff coming up there. Saturdays, actually, within probably by the time this finally airs, our Winter's End story, our Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign, is over, or will be over. That was a 2-year-long campaign. So if you want to catch up with that, we have all the VODs. You can go back and watch them as well on youtube.com/Nat1Fun. And that's pretty much it for now. In terms of Gehenna Gaming, we have just all kinds of stuff coming out. But Nick, I'll let you go ahead and jump on those because you are better at remembering things than I am. But I think the one that I'm most probably going to be involved in production-wise is going to be Pasión de las Pasiones. Oh my God. But it is a Spanish soap opera type TTRPG with a lot of fun, intrigue, and stuff like that. So you can expect to see that probably the week after Gen Con. So second week of August.
It'll probably be over by all the episodes will probably be on YouTube by the time this comes out.
So. Exactly. So go check them out on YouTube, and
there'll be links everywhere, so you can find it. So
sure, follow
go watch
the links.
It.
That's it for me, though. Dan, Nat1Fun. That's it.
I just want to say thank you for having me on. This has been absolutely wonderful, and you're all so lovely. My name is Nick. You can find me at Nobleman Nick. I'm the production and marketing manager over on Gehenna Gaming. I also do stuff with Caring Comfort Studios as one of their creative liaisons, and I'm a Devil/cast member on Devil's Luck Gaming, who is they're a local studio. They make some awesome stuff and really raising the bar for actual plays. In terms of what you can see me on as of September and beyond. So we have a lot of great games coming from Gehenna Gaming. We'll be starting our liminal horror series over there. We're going to be starting Cyborg, I believe, in September as well. That's going to be awesome. As well as Hunter the Reckoning will be coming in October. So you'll have that. And then in 2 months, you'll get to see us in December at PAX Unplugged. I like to party. I like to karaoke. I like to have the occasional drink, as Dan might know. We're going to have a lot of fun. Other than that, you can also find me on, as this time, there's a few secret products I don't want to announce yet because I know I'll be allowed to by this time. Something with rabbit ears. I'm just going to give the hint for that I'm not allowed to say. Also, Neon Excess Evangelion will be most likely being premiering on October 1st is the hope. So hopefully we don't have to keep pushing that back up. And I guess I just want to leave everyone off with a question, because we talked about the future and what's going on, and we're in this renaissance of TTRPGs, as well as we're kind of in a renaissance of actual plays. From everyone here on this call right now, what do you think the next step up of actual plays is? What is the ceiling you're aiming for next?
What is my
yes, what is your next
step?
Personal ceiling? What are you aiming for now?
Okay, so I've said this before, and it's straight up from my love of performing and stuff like that. My goal is to, of course, produce for some great shows, and I'm already on the rails to do that. But my number one thing is to actually play a live show at a con, to be like at a convention and have people in an audience and playing, and trying to get audience interaction and stuff like that during an actual play. That is my goal. That would be super duper fun.
Alongside it, absolutely copying that last sentiment. I 100% want to be able to do live convention-based the actual play. I want to be able to play in one of those, or run one, but that makes me so nervous.
Oh God, no! I would hate to run one. Hell no.
But if I did run one, it would have to be either like it would have to be very silly, and I have some in mind. But no, I would love to play in con-based or like live studio audience-based like performance TTRPG sort of thing. The other one, goodness, the other one I think is actually by the time this comes out, we should be prepping for a show that I have a company called Goblin Society Games that my spouse and I founded along with our friend, and we are prepping for our first TTRPG to be aired based on a world that I made that we're gonna be like publishing and like all of these things going into it with like production and all this sort of stuff, and we're like collaborating with people, and I'm excited for that and what that might bring about as far as like what it could do for our like reaching out to other people with our company or like me as a performer and like all that sort of stuff, and like lofty goals of like I'd love to be able to be at the same table with people like way out, like I want to play a game with Spencer Stark and Bria Ironguard and like Brennan Lee Mulligan. Like that's like the lofty, like I'm gonna toss that out into the like, you know, towards the courts and see where it lands.
So
but like
this is one thing I know we're closing up and everything like that, but this is one thing about the TTRPG space as a whole that I think some people need to hear, because a lot of times we are like, there's a lot of people right now that are shooting for the stars to like play with Matthew Mercer or something like that, you know, like up there. But I think what's great knowledge wise is that it's not necessarily like there's one top and like that's it. It's moving. The TTRPG space is moving. So those who are on top right now might not be the ones who are on top later down the line. So schmoozing and getting to know everybody in the space right now is a great way to later on down the line get with the juggernauts who you've already made friends with and you know like in the space and everything like that, because someone somewhere is going to be successful. And if you're friends with them already because you had already built up that base and everything like that, more along the lines that, you know, I'm not saying you have to ride the coattails of them, but you can play with them in instances where it might be a larger audience and stuff like that. So
rising tide lifts all boats, you know, that's
there
always what we need to subscribe to everything is
absolutely succeed together.
But friends and collaborators. Don't take advantage of people. But like genuinely try to meet people where they are and get to know them as individuals before you start to like think about what they can do for you, you know?
Exactly.
And that's the sort of stuff that pays off in the end, you know?
Also, I didn't say my personal goal, but
please tell me.
I look at Kolak. I see what they do. I'm a film nerd. I love it.
Yes.
I got this really expensive camera now. I got studio lights. I got everything. In-person studio, hopefully by the end of the year. Kolak, I'm coming for you. I'm dethroning you.
Let's go!
You heard it here.
Shout out to Kolak.
Swear to God, if you don't give me an invite.
Yes, please. Yes. I listen, I'm gonna write you right now and say, dear Nick.
Hell yeah.
Now give me an invite. The end.
The West Coast ain't gonna have nothing on the East Coast by the time we're done.
Let's go.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Excellent. Well, thank you two so much for all of your time and your wonderful insights. Again, y'all make sure that you follow these two and also Gehenna Gaming and everything that they're doing. As always, you can find me on the internet at happycapster, where I stream a whole lot and shout a whole lot on the internet, and also on Twitter and all of those spaces. But you know that if you're here already, so you can find all of that. But as always, everyone, I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that your cup is full of something delicious and warm, and that you are full of love, because you're worth it. We love you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm leaving now. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.